All right, so let's face it, trying to really get a handle on your stock investments, it can be a bit much sometimes,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
looking at a mountain of data and trying to make sense of it all.
Right.
But that's what we're here for. And today we're going to dive into something I think is really cool. It's this Android app called Stock ROI, and we're going to be pulling from a demo video that the TX Solve channel on YouTube put together.
Yeah, it looks pretty impressive.
Yeah. And our goal with this deep dive is to really get to the heart of how this thing works.
Exactly.
Not just list off a bunch of features, but really understand what it can do and how it can help simplify things like tracking your portfolio performance.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is going beyond just looking at numbers.
Right.
It's about making that data actionable, actually using it to help you make smart investment decisions.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right?
Totally.
To make the most of our investments. And I think this app could be a really useful tool for that. So, okay, let's jump in. When you first open the app, what do you see?
So the demo starts right as the app launches, and the first thing you see is this screen where you can start building your portfolio, which is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that right away, it asks you to choose whether you're tracking stocks on the NYSE or the BSE.
Interesting. So it caters to different markets right from the get-go.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like BSE is the default option. So if you're primarily invested in Indian markets, you're good to go.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's say you've chosen your market. How do you actually go about adding your individual stocks to the app?
Well, it's a pretty simple process. You just input the company, name the number of shares you own, and the price you bought them at.
Okay, so it's manual entry, but it sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, very much so. And then once you've entered all the details for a stock, there's a save button you hit, and that adds it to your portfolio.
Got it. And what if you've got a diverse portfolio? You're not just holding a couple of different stocks. How does it handle multiple entries?
As you add more stocks, it automatically creates a table for you.
Nice, so you can see everything in one place.
Exactly. And the table shows you a list of all your stocks, the total amount you've invested in each one, and the percentage of your overall portfolio each stock represents.
Well, that's really helpful to see that percentage breakdown right away.
Hmm.
You can immediately see if one holding is maybe a bit too big compared to the others.
Absolutely. It gives you a really good sense of your asset allocation right from the start.
Okay, so what about making changes?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to update the number of shares you own or remove a stock entirely.
Yeah, you can do all of that really easily just by selecting the row in the table that corresponds to the stock you want to edit, and you can modify the details or remove it altogether.
Perfect. So it's really flexible, and you can keep your portfolio information up to date, which is obviously super important.
Absolutely. You need that flexibility because your holdings are always changing.
Okay, so we've got our portfolio all set up. Now let's get to the good stuff. How does this app actually show you how your investments are performing?
This is where the visualizations come in. By tapping on a specific stock in your portfolio table, you can pull up performance charts that are tailored to that individual stock.
Okay, so you can really drill down into the details of each holding.
Yeah, and they also have these really handy select all and unselect all buttons, so you can easily view the combined performance of multiple stocks or your entire portfolio if you want.
Ah, that's super convenient, so you don't have to go through and select everything individually.
Exactly, and to make it even clearer, they use green buttons to visually indicate which stocks are currently selected.
Oh, that's a nice touch.
Yeah, it makes it really easy to see what you're looking at, and as you select or deselect stocks, the data and graphs update in real time.
That's awesome. So you're always looking at the most up-to-date information.
Exactly, and to make absolutely sure you're working with the latest data, there's also a refresh ROI button.
Okay, and what does that do?
It basically pulls in the most current data and recalculates your portfolio returns so you can be confident that everything is accurate.
Makes sense because in the stock market, things are constantly changing. You need that ability to refresh and get the latest picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so we can see individual stock performance. We can see groups of stocks now. What about getting some kind of overall sense of how our entire portfolio is doing?
Yeah, for that, the app shows you two key metrics, your net ROI and your ROI percentage.
Okay, and those basically tell you whether you're making money or losing money, right?
Exactly. Net ROI is the total profit or loss your portfolio has generated since you started tracking it in the app.
So it's the big picture number.
Right. And then the ROI percentage expresses that return as a percentage of your initial investment.
Which is really helpful for comparing performance over different time periods.
Exactly. You can see how your portfolio is doing relative to your starting point.
Okay, so those are the headline numbers, but sometimes you need to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that, they have something called a detailed portfolio breakdown.
Okay. And what kind of information do you get there?
It's basically a table that breaks down the performance of each individual stock in your portfolio.
So you can see how each holding is contributing to those overall numbers.
Exactly. For each stock, it shows you the total amount you've invested, the percentage of your portfolio. It represents the ROI percentage on the total returns and the ROI percentage based on your initial investment.
Wow, that's a lot of detail.
Yeah, it's really granular, but it's great for really understanding what's driving your portfolio's performance. You can see which stocks are your stars and which ones might be holding you back.
Absolutely. And then on top of all that, it also shows you performance trends over time, which is really cool.
Yeah, by default, it shows you monthly trends, but you can also switch to weekly or even daily data if you want.
Oh, wow. So you can really zoom in and see the short-term fluctuations or zoom out and get a longer-term perspective.
Exactly. And they use different types of graphs to visualize these trends.
Okay, so tell me about those different graphs.
Well, they have a line graph that tracks the ROI trends of your selected stocks over time.
Okay, so that basically gives you a visual history of how each stock has performed,
Yeah, exactly. You can see how volatile it's been, how much it's gone up and down, and what the overall trajectory has been.
which can be really helpful for assessing the risk and potential of a particular stock.
Absolutely. You can start to see patterns and understand the long-term behavior of your investments.
Okay, and what about the bar graph? What's that for?
The bar graph is specifically for comparing the ROI percentage of different stocks.
So you can quickly see which ones are your top performers and which ones are lagging behind.
Exactly. It's a visual ranking system based on current profitability.
That's really intuitive. And then there's also a portfolio ROI summary bar graph.
Right? That one gives you a big picture view of your entire portfolio's performance.
So one bar graph for individual stocks and another for the overall portfolio.
Right. It gives you both the detail and the overall context.
And then they also have an ROI net change graph. What's that one all about?
That graph shows you how the profitability of each individual stock has changed over a specific time period.
So it's not just about the current return, but the direction the return is moving.
Exactly. You can see if a stock is gaining momentum or losing steam, which can be a really important factor in your buy, hold, or sell decisions.
Right, because a stock that's currently down but trending upwards might actually be a good opportunity.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the momentum.
And finally, there's something called a key stock details table. What's that?
That table basically gives you all the crucial performance indicators for each stock in one place.
So it's kind of a one-stop shop for all the important stats.
Yeah, exactly. It typically includes the amount you invested, the ROI percentage, the ROI amount, and the net change in ROI.
So if you just want a quick snapshot of a particular stock, you can go right here.
Exactly. It's all laid out for you in a really easy to read format.
Wow, so this app really does pack a lot of features into it.
It really does. And from what I saw in the demo, it looks like it's designed to be really user-friendly.
Yeah, that's important because we don't want to be fighting with the technology. We want it to be working for us.
Exactly. And the presenter in the demo made a point of saying that the app is completely free of ads and in-app purchases.
Oh, wow, that's really refreshing.
Yeah.
You know, so many apps these days are trying to nickel and dime you at every turn.
Yeah, it seems like their focus is really on providing a clean and focused user experience and helping people succeed with their investments.
I like that. So as we wrap up here, what would you say are the key takeaways about this Stock ROI app?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's a really comprehensive tool for tracking your stock portfolio performance.
It really does seem to cover all the bases.
Yeah, you've got your overview of your investments, you've got detailed performance metrics for each stock, and you've got all these visualizations that help you understand trends over time.
And all of that is presented in a way that's clear and easy to understand.
Exactly. They've really thought about the user experience, and I think that's what makes this app so promising.
Yeah, I agree. So for everyone listening, think about this. If you had all this data at your fingertips, how would it change the way you approach your investments? You know, would it make you more confident, more informed, more proactive?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question to ask ourselves because having access to this kind of information can really empower us to make better decisions.
Absolutely. It can help us move beyond just owning stocks to really understanding how those investments are working for us. And that's what it's all about, right?
Definitely. I think this app has the potential to be a real game changer for a lot of investors.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Of course, my pleasure.
And for all of you listening, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep that investing journey moving forward.